up, guys? It's Multiplier, and today this is how I made Firecracker. It's a new song I just finished yesterday, and I'm super stoked on it. Just been sending it around and been having some cool feedback from it. So yeah, what I thought I'd do is show you the track, and yeah, maybe not show you all of it, but show you some cool bits of it, and then kind of show you how I made it, because there's a few kind of interesting things I did in terms of the kind of the approach and the sound design and the mixing and stuff like that, really. So yeah, probably the best way to start is to show you the track. So I won't play all of it, but I'll probably play the first half or so. And yeah, it's called Firecracker, spelt like that, Firecracker. And here it is. It's completely mental. So yeah, it's kind of more trappy in that bit without those kind of fast drums. And then it kind of goes cool with some more fast vocally actions. Sounds a bit like this. Oh, wrong button.
This is how we're feeling. Girl, I'm in the party, look so appealing. Face up to the situation looming. One of them down is gonna be my darling. When you can't see the angles no more. Pack your bags, cause you're going through the front door. Are your wife where you shoulder adore. All the love what she give you when you want more. Shopping down at the eye candy store. Parading all over the shop floor. Buy enough things, but you still want a piece more. What me knows and me see a fancy cure. High top, this is how we're feeling. Girl, I'm in the party, look so appealing.
Pretty rad, right? Pretty different. And yeah, I made it insanely quickly for me, because normally it takes forever with tracks, but I was just really feeling it, and I really thought I kind of captured the vibe I was kind of going for when I started out the track. But yeah, let's have a look at the project. So I'll just close down Traktor. And yeah, it's a bit like this. It's a pretty simple project, only 33 tracks, which really isn't that many, to be really honest. And yeah, so what's the kind of the goal behind the track? Well, I was listening to Elephant, E-L-L-I-P-H-A-N-T, and I just really liked that kind of raw energy and the fact that it wasn't about a particular genre. It was just kind of high energy, kind of slightly raw, slightly kind of energetic. It's just got a bit of attitude and a bit of kind of edge to it, and I really like that kind of vibe, and I really thought I kind of captured the same kind of spirit in this track, especially with those kind of similar sort of drums that you'd hear from an Elephant track. So yeah, super stoked on it, and yeah, well, what I'll probably do is run you a few of the things I did in the track, just so you can kind of see how it all worked. So it all kind of stemmed out of the fact I, for a start, chose 160 beats in the minute, 160 BPM, really fast, just because I wanted it to be. I wanted to choose a different BPM for a start. I was getting a bit kind of stuck in my ways, always ending up at 128 BPM, and just it's got weird fast energy. Everyone's like, it's taking them just on a different sort of edge, because it's a bit faster than you'd expect, but at the same time it kind of slows down kind of halfway through into more of a trappy sort of feel without those fast drums. But yeah, really cool stuff. And as far as the drums go, I'll show you how the drums work. So if I just kind of solo the drums, you can hear them by themselves. Well, this is most of the drums anyway. So yeah, they're the drums. By themselves, they aren't too complicated. If I turn off all the processing, I kind of show you how I built it up. So basically started off like this, which is just a very, very simple drum loop, which I found in a sample pack. It's quite cool. It's got a little bit of kind of airy, reverby sort of vibe to it, so I didn't really have to stick too much, or stick really any reverb on it by itself. But what I wanted to do is just kind of give it more of a dancey feel. It was a little bit straight and a little bit kind of one-dimensional. So what I did is I was playing around with Sigmund, which is this really, really, really cool delay thing made by the guys at D16. I'm absolutely in love with this plugin. I was kind of playing through the presets and just kind of seeing what of the presets kind of just gave it a different sort of, just taking things to the next level in terms of the vibe and the feeling. I ended up with this cool delay, which if I kind of trigger it off and on, you'll kind of hear the difference. So let's make sure it's looping for a start. So if I turn it on, so you hear that kind of background stuff? If I turn it off, it's got kind of really cool, sort of like, it's in the background, but it's just got really sort of, it's not distracting, but it just gives it a nice pumping, flowy sort of offbeat, sort of shuffly rhythm type thing. So if I kind of solo it, you can hear it by itself. Really nice, really kind of subtle, but that's kind of all I really wanted in the drums was kind of that main kind of what I call just the straight drums by themselves. So it's hitting where it needs to. That's still the main driving force, but you have this kind of background shuffly rhythm that really just makes it a really dancey sort of drum loop that sounds a bit like this. Really, really cool stuff. And then what I also did, for reasons that I'm not 100% sure on, is I basically put, oh yeah, I know why, I remember now. So I basically, actually that doesn't make any sense, my reasoning, I just thought up. But no, yeah, for some reason what I did is I basically took the straight signal by itself and then put the delayed signal completely wet on like a separate channel. And then I could kind of run the whole lot through some more processing. I'm not entirely sure why I did that, since strictly speaking, I could have just played with the wet dry knob on Sigmund to kind of balance the two signals. But I think what I was going to do, in fact, that's probably what I was going to do, was maybe drench the delay in some reverb and then chop it up and process it separately by kind of resampling. But I decided I didn't need that, and I thought I might as well just leave it as it is. So I've got the delayed signal, which is pretty cool, kind of the horse delay, as it's the preset's called in Sigmund, and the straight signal. And then what I did to really take it to the next level, so this is what it sounds like now. Well, for a start, the first thing I did was clean up the low end with a bit of alloy. In fact, I think I might have done some exciting as well. Oh, I did. So yeah, I did two cool things. If I kind of turn on alloy in a sec, so. Can you hear the difference? You have to hear quite carefully. So I'll turn it kind of off and on. Just kind of keep your eyes and ears peeled. So I'll keep it, say off. I'll keep it off for 2 bars and then on for 2 bars, and I'll do that twice. So. Pretty cool stuff, right? So what was I doing then with an isotope alloy? Well, basically what I was doing is 2 things. For a start, I was cleaning up the low end. So if you have a look at the spectrum analyzer now, see from about, say, 150 hertz below, there's all this like low end rumbly shit. It's useless. It's not adding anything to the sound. Normally you can't really hear that low end stuff, but I could actually hear it in that particular case. So I cleaned that up with a really steep, super steep high pass filter, as you can see here, just kind of clearing up the low end so that the bass and stuff can really just sit in its own space, because that low end rumble isn't adding anything to the track by itself. And then what I also did was I was playing around with the exciter presets in isotope alloy. I can't remember which one I ended up choosing, but if you just click Exciter and then Module, you can choose a whole bunch of presets. But it looks like I did some cool stuff with the multi-band exciting in terms of just adding in some harmonics to the low and the mid-range. Just kind of thickens it out a bit, adds a bit more character. In particular, just makes it sound kind of warmer and a bit thicker. Which is really nice stuff. And then what I did after that is I used a Max for Live convolution reverb called PVC Tube, which if I turn it off and on, you'll hear just gives it a really sort of cool, different sort of sound. So it's off, and now on. Really, really subtle. You probably have a hard time hearing that through all YouTube's compression and shit. But basically what's doing is adding a really, really, really short convolution reverb to the sound. So it gets basically blended in with the original sound. So it basically just gives it a real kind of subtle airiness to it. It's a really cool reverb preset called PVC Tube. So it's kind of real subtle kind of airiness to it. And that kind of just makes the whole thing sound a bit airy. Combined with the warmth of isotope alloy and the kind of the shuffly back rhythm type thing of this delay just makes this drum loop sound really, really cool. And it's one of the main themes of the whole song is this kind of fast drum loop. So I really wanted to make sure it really kind of was a nice sounding, interesting, and also really functional drum loop. And yeah, I'm pretty stoked on it. It's a cool little drum loop thing. What else was quite cool that I used? So how else was this track constructed? So we have some distorted kicks, which are these guys. And these are basically distorted kicks that I made for a sample pack a while ago, Kick 154. So I made a sample pack of distorted kicks for, I think it was Equinox Sounds a while ago. And yeah, just kind of was having a dig through my sample pack and chose it. Now, it's not super refined. In fact, it's pretty kind of weird and it's almost like a kick and a bass combined, but it's just got this nice kind of raw energy to it. It's not a well-refined kick. It's not super punchy, but it does punch a bit and it just kind of sits there. It's just kind of nice. It's not even like really nice distortion either. It's like super mono and not that interesting, but it just sits there and allows some chaos to go around it. And I just literally left it as it is because it was nice and compressed and limited and all sorts as it was. And I just like that kind of flat driving sort of different sort of energy. It was really, really nice. So I just kind of left it as it is. Yeah, sometimes you don't need to fuck with stuff if it's kind of nice straight out the bat. So that was my kick I made. And then we got some more kind of distorted kicks and stuff going on in the intro. So we have this distorted kick, which was from the same sample pack. So that was again from a sample pack I made, this time Kick 114. It's pretty cool. It's almost like a kick and a bass sound, which then combined with this Gladiator bass preset that I made and kind of rendered out, resampled, kind of rendered out to audio. Sounds really, really cool. It's kind of got this cool kind of like background bass sort of thing. So I have this kind of really like reverb bass sitting in the background, just kind of giving it giving the intro kind of like an ambience, and with this cool kind of squealy noise built into the bass kind of patch as well. And then what I did is, the reason why I basically rendered it out to audio was kind of, the main reason was Gladiator, when you make your own patches, it's a little bit unstable and sometimes it kind of forgets what patch you chose, and it's also really, really CPU intensive. So I was pretty happy with the noise. I wasn't going to repitch it or anything like that, so I just thought, let's render it out to audio, and then what we can also do is chop off the end of the reverb tail as well, so that it cuts out really cleanly here. Otherwise, basically, you'd have this big reverb tail. So that's pretty cool for that particular bass sound. Yeah, I made that preset in Gladiator. I also ran it through a Devastor distortion. Is it called Devastor? Yeah, Devastor distortion plugin before I bounced it out to audio. I think it was something like, it's got smoky. It's one of the bass presets. It's called like something and smoky, something like that. It's a cool cool distortion bass preset thing, that just some cool compression and filtering and distortion all at the same time. Just kind of balanced the whole thing out, gave it a bit more of an interesting, different sort of character, and made it kind of sit further back in the mix a bit, which was what I wanted as well. So it's really, really cool. That's kind of what I did with the kick and the bass. And yeah, that distorted kick was left completely as it is, because it's not really a functional kick. It doesn't have to punch super hard. It's just really there to give. I mean, it kind of does still punch hard because it has these snares above it when they hit, but it just kind of sits in there as like a driving force through the intro and the outro sections as well, which is pretty cool. Got this kind of noise, sounds a bit like this, which is basically the high-passed distorted kick from, again, that same distorted kick sample pack. See how mental that looks? Wow, look at that waveform. That's like some sort of ninja star type thing. That's pretty rad. So yeah, from this distorted kick, just did some simple high passing, and it basically just gives it, it's almost like a percussive hi-hat sort of thing in terms of its effect. Just kind of sits there doing its thing. What else is going on? We got a riser I made, nice and simple. Don't need to show you that. Got some sound effects that I made for a sample pack that's coming out soon. Oh, sounds a bit like this for the intro. Sounds a bit out of place and a bit choppy by themselves, but they really fit in with the intro. Just makes the first hit interesting, gets you set up. Remember, you don't have to repeat a sound for it to be kind of worthwhile. You can just have it sit there once in a track. It's all good stuff. Now, what I'll do now is, because this is dragging on a bit more than I thought, I'll get to the vocals, because the vocals is something that a lot of people ask me, how did you process them? So what I thought I'd do is run you through them, because the vocals sound sick. So we'll kind of focus on this particular vocal section, because the vocal processing is pretty similar for all three vocal sections. It's just tweaked with the delay and stuff, and kind of the editing. So yeah, the vocal sounds like this.
Yo, straight up, yo, straight up. Analog to digital, give beats a GP, physical from edge to end, beginning to winner from pillar to post. Get roast by this incredible host. Clean like the rap till you're dead in the flows. Spread the lows when it comes to ripping words. When the tune rolls in my mind's free like the birds. I get heard. Yo, straight up, yo, straight up.
Really, really cool shit. It's just kind of, oh, it's got really nice sound to it, and really love it. So what I'll do is I'll basically run you through step by step this massive or medium-sized to big chain of plugins that I used on it, really. So the very first thing I did, well, this is basically, this is the vocal with no processing, just so you know what I had to work with. I mean, you can see it's quite chopped up as well.
Yo, straight up, yo, straight up. Analog to digital, give beats a GP, physical from edge to end, beginning to winner from pillar to post.
So I mean, it's quite nice as it is. It's got really nice dynamics to it. It's got some cool plosives as well. Those P sounds, the technical word for P sounds, especially around like here.
Analog to digital, give beats a GP, physical from edge to end, beginning to winner from pillar to post.
Like around here, especially. Like I really like those plosives. So what I didn't want to do is lose those kind of plosives, and in particular those dynamics, because it's a really fast, choppy vocal, and I wanted to make sure that each kind of chop of the choppy vocal, if that makes sense, each kind of consonant really stands out, so it still feels like a fast, driving, exciting vocal. When I was kind of doing some compression to it initially, what it was doing was just blending into this big mush of sound instead of being nice and choppy, because I really like that choppiness, especially with those fast drums. It's one of the things I really love about this vocal. So yeah, what did I do? First thing I did is this little utility here. If we have a look at the automation, I automated some of the volume here because it was a bit out of whack. So you hear before, basically I added some automation that makes it a bit louder and then quieter, just because for some reason the volume seemed a little bit whack, and I could have technically fixed it with compression, but I thought, why do a bodge job with compression that might ruin some dynamics if I can just fix it with a bit of automation? So now it's the right volume the whole way through, especially when the vocal comes back in. I need to make sure it's the right loudness. So that was just that fixed. And then what I did is I turned on this. So what is going on here, I think, if I remember correctly, this is, yeah, so this is almost certainly one of the vocal, it is one of the vocal presets in iZotope Alloy. So what I did is I went through all the presets in iZotope Alloy, all the vocal ones, and just trying to find one that has the right sort of character. That didn't lose those kind of choppy dynamics that I liked, didn't lose those plosives, brightened it up a bit. I definitely wanted it brighter, and just made it sound a bit thicker and a bit nicer. So if I remember correctly, I think this is something like a tight pop vocal, that preset. To be honest, it doesn't matter what the preset is. Basically, all I did was choose a preset that retained the qualities I liked. So what I do is I'll turn off and on the preset so you can hear what it sounds like. So this is it off.
Analog to digital, give beats a GP, physical from edge to inner, begin
And
to
off.
win up a pillar to post. Get roast by this incredible host. Clean like the rap till you're dead in the flows. Spread the lows when it comes to ripping words. When the tune rolls in my mind's free like the birds. Have you heard? Yo, straight up, G, yo, straight up. Analog to digital, give beats a GP, physical from edge to inner, begin to win up a pillar to post.
So it even emphasizes those plosives. When it goes pillar to post, that kind of that per sound, it emphasizes those. Just makes it really, really nice. Also, it's really, really brightens it up, which just kind of not only leaves room for the other stuff going on in the mix, but just gives it kind of like a nice airy, floaty sort of finish, and just gives it more character, really, because fundamentally I wanted this vocal to have character, which is pretty cool. So you can see you got a bit of an equalizer, got a little bit of transients action going on, transient shaping, not that much, a little bit of exciting. This is where you got your dynamics. In fact, we probably see what the compressor's doing if we play it through. So if you glance your eyes like to this thing here, so if you glance your eyes to this kind of readout, it kind of shows you how much compression is going on as the vocal goes through.
Analog to digital, give beats a GP, physical from edge to inner, beginning to win up a pillar to post. Get roast by this incredible host. Clean like the rap till you're dead in the flows. Spread the lows when it comes to ripping words. When the tune rolls in my mind's free like the birds. Have you heard? Yo, straight up, G, yo, straight up.
So quite a bit of compression going on, but yeah, fundamentally it still retains all the characters I like. Probably some de-essing and maybe some limiting, I can't remember. It doesn't look like there's any limiting, which is cool stuff because, yeah, didn't really want much limiting going on. So that's the first bit of processing. So it sounds like this. It's quite nice, but what I want to do is just give it a bit more edge, a bit more character. So what I did is I used Decimort, which sounds like this.
Analog to digital, give beats a GP, physical from
off and on.
Get roast by this incredible host. Clean like the rap till you're dead in the flows. Spread the lows when it comes to ripping words.
So it's basically just adding a load of kind of edge. I mean, it sounds louder as well, even though it's not actually, we're not really losing more than like a dB or so max of headroom. So it's not really even making it much louder. It's just making it sound louder and more kind of edgy, and it's got a really nice vibe. And that's because I'm using Decimort, which is a really cool bit crusher. Something I've been using quite a bit. I think it's made by D16 if I remember correctly. Is Decimort made by D16? Yeah, I think D16, yeah. Yeah, it's made by D16. I should really know that, but yeah, it's made by D16. Just kind of gives it really sort of edgy edge, because that's what bit crushing is doing. It's like really distorted, kind of crunchy distortion. And yeah, I mean, there's some cool stuff about this particular preset. Is the bit crushing that's going on the left side is different to the bit crushing that's going on the right side, so it just gives it a bit more width and just makes it sound awesome. And that's just from one of the presets in Decimort. So I'll show you again. I'll turn it off and then on and then off and then on. You should be able to definitely hear this one.
Yo, straight up, G, yo, straight up. Analog to digital, give beats a GP, physical from edge to inner, beginning to win up from pillar to post. Get roast by this incredible host. Clean like the rap till you're dead in the flows. Spread the lows when it comes.
Just kind of thickens up some of those sounds as well, just gives it a nice sort of crunchy vibe. Again, I did a lot of processing on this, like I did a lot of processing on the drum loop, just because I really wanted it to stand out and I really wanted it to be kind of impressive. And yeah, if you've got some of your main elements of the mix you really want to work on and make sure they really are something kind of special. So that was that. So the vocals definitely starting to come the right direction now. We've got all the kind of the plosives and the choppiness we originally wanted. What did we do next? So if I remember correctly, we did this. So what we did is we did some more exciting, which basically just adds in some more harmonics, kind of reasonably subtly in the mid-range and the higher frequency. So we used this exciter here, a nice alloy, really, really nice exciter. Can't remember if I used the preset or just pulled up a few faders or did a preset and then played around with the faders. But yeah, fundamentally I'm doing basically adding in some more subtle distortion of a different kind to what we've been doing before, to those mid and upper frequencies. Just gives it a bit more edge, a bit more kind of bite without losing those cool plosives and the attacks of the consonants in the vocal. So sounds a bit like this, really. Off and on. So it just gives it a nice sort of texture to the vocal sound, really, really nice. It's one of the most common things I do with my vocals, and I think it's one of the things that gives my vocal processing a bit of its kind of, not signature sound, but something that a lot of people ask me how to make my vocals sound like that. And a lot of it is in doing really careful exciting, which is basically another word for saturation, which is another word for distortion of mid and upper frequencies, just to give it a bit of an edge. It's pretty cool. And then we use the isotope alloy again. Now, I didn't really have to do a separate instance of alloy for this. I could have just done it in this alloy, but then change the graph around so the equalizer was next. But basically all I wanted to do was chop out the low frequency. So you can see here, I did a high, what's it called, like a really, really steep high pass filter, just getting rid of the low end. So if you keep your eye on the spectrum analyzer in the middle here, that's why I have it up. And then when I turn it on, you'll see the low end disappear. So see, pretty cool. As I said, I didn't have to use a separate version of alloy. I could have gone into the graph here and kind of reordered the EQ so it was after the exciter. But what I didn't want to do is forget that I'd reordered it and then come back to it later and do something else and forget, and then I get all confused. So I just thought, let's drag out another copy of alloy. My computer can definitely handle it. It's pretty cool. So my preset is pretty much there, or my processing. So it's nice and edgy. It's got character. It's cool. Still hits where it's supposed to. It's still punchy and choppy and all that kind of goodness. But what I want to do is obviously stick some reverb on it just to kind of elevate it and put it in a space. So I use Tor reverb, and it sounds a bit like this. It sounds lovely.
And I look to digital, give beats a GP physical from edge to inner, beginning to winner from pillar to post. Get roast by this incredible host. Clean like the rap till you're dead in the flows.
So yeah, another preset, another plugin made by the guys at D16. I do love their stuff, called Tor reverb, and it's just like a really nice kind of ethereal, is that a word? I think it is, sounding reverb, and I really just think it lifts the vocal. And not only does it lift it and put it in a nice space, but it just kind of fills up the background of the mix with this really nice kind of reverb tail that's obviously related to the vocals, so it makes sense. It's really, really nice. Really, really like that reverb. Now, I don't normally use this Tor reverb too much. I usually use Max for Live reverbs, but this just fit in absolutely perfectly. Really nice sounding reverb. Really kind of silky sounding, really, really cool stuff. So that's the vocal. Wow, this video's long, but you know what? This is what it's like if you want to get proper mix tips, because you can't explain everything in 4 minutes flat. So what else did I do that's quite cool in this track? Since it's going to be a long video, why not? Let's make it really long. So we've got some cool stuff. We did some cool stuff with the vocal here. So for this like breakdown-y sort of, it's not really a breakdown, it's more of a break section. So you got your kind of, oh, you'll see the transition. So, oh, it's been soloed, right. Pretty cool. So for that particular vocal and that particular kind of break section, it's the same processing as the normal vocal. I say the normal vocal, the vocal we just did, except I did a bit of delay on it. So I used Isotope Trash for the delay. Really, really nice delay. Basically what Isotope Trash does is on the delayed signal, so the signal that comes back, every time it comes back, it's processed with some distortion. You can choose the distortion mode, so like tape or tape tube, analog, lo-fi, digital, broken bit, digital, whatever. Basically what it does is it just makes the delay a bit more interesting, and depending on the particular style you're going for, you can do what you want with it. So in this case I went for digital delay, just so it stays nice and bright, basically, because a lot of these other distortions ends up dulling it a bit, which is sometimes great, but not in this particular case. We've got a really thick bass line. We wanted the delayed signal to stay bright and not to conflict with the bass. So we used a digital distortion, and then we also pulled this kind of filter from here to here. So I moved it from about here to about here. And what that does is it just filters out some more of the low end in the delayed signal. Again, so the bass has space to breathe and just keeps that delay sounding nice and bright and nice and kind of airy. I guess airy is the right word. Just kind of puts it in its own space so it sounds like this. Oh, is it playing? There you go. Oh, here you go.
Feeling. Feeling.
See how that kind of delay was still nice and airy, and then it still sounded like the right signal, but it was kind of subtly digitally distorted, which we can kind of vary with this trash from the width bit. But like try and hear it's quite subtle, you won't be able to hear it on laptop speakers, but try and hear the subtle digital distortion with the delay on this vocal. It really just gives it a nice sort of vibe in the background. You don't really hear it as such in the mix, but you kind of do subconsciously.
Feeling. Looming.
And especially with that kind of ethereal tour reverb delay as well, it just kind of, it's almost like the vocal, then you hear the vocal and then it goes to somewhere else. It's really, really nice. Really, really good stuff. And then what I did is for a different, I basically made the wet on the dry wet balance for the delayed signal different for some of the vocal, which I could have automated. Sometimes I just automate the dry wet, but in this case, I just decided to duplicate it out to a different channel and run it as a different dry wet setting. Could have done it with automation, but yeah, just decided to do it differently. That track name's misleading. There is delay on that as well, so whatever. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Just got a Vengeance smash since what would a track be without a Vengeance sample? Really, really nice, thick, awesome sounding impact. Really, really well processed. All I did was take the low end out because naturally there's a really thick driving bass line going on in there, where if I'd had this smash with a bunch of bass coming in, it would have had phasing issues, would have eaten up all my headroom. The limiter would have gone nuts when I mastered it, so I just kind of got rid of that low end so that although I wanted to kind of, I didn't want to high pass it too much. I wanted to basically only take out the bare minimum of bass, so I got the most of this sound as possible, but obviously leaving enough room for the bass of the just long distorted kick to really breathe. And yeah, that's what I did with that particular sound. Otherwise, yeah, it just fit nicely. What else is going on? We have all this cool alien guitar tuning noise I made for one of my sample packs a while ago. Well, it's basically I kind of fucked with one of the presets I made a while ago. The actual preset wasn't like that, but I just kind of lengthened it out so it was more long. And then with a bit of a filter sweep, I thought it was quite a nice little build. Pretty cool shit. And then we've got this cool sort of, again, this was a... That was a massive, basically one massive preset and two variations on the preset by changing the macro knobs. And that was a preset that I made for, it's called Trap Massive Synth Sample Pack that went out on Loopmasters. So I just played with the macros a bit so it sounds similar but slightly different. So that's just a preset I made, really, really nice stuff. A few more sound effects sort of things. Another massive preset I made for this kind of wobbly build. So it goes up, is held, and then goes even higher. Really, really nice stuff. I think that preset's coming out in a sample pack that's coming out soon called Space Effects. Space FX. It's not, this particular preset isn't really much to do with space, but I just happen to have this preset and a few others lying about, so I decided to include it in that particular pack. That's pretty cool. A few cymbals, a few standard like sweeps and stuff, these sort of noises everywhere. And like this one. Standard sort of sweepy sort of stuff, you need loads of those everywhere. There's another one here, for example. Lovely. And then a few pre-drop snares and stuff like that. Just standard sort of shit. Standard sort of shit. Nice old snare with a bit of lovely little reverb on there with the low end, low cutted out / high passed out, whatever you want to call it. A low pass is a low cut is a high pass. kind of. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the track. Is there any other relevant points I should let you know? Let's have a very quick scan. That's pretty much it, really. Basically, a lot of the way through, as you should be doing with pretty much everything, I took out the low end. So if we just take up this track as an example, you see I got rid of the low end, made it slightly less high-endy as well, but I just completely chopped out the low end. That should just be something you do with pretty much everything, because most samples from most sample packs come, I mean, even I do it with my samples, I leave the low end in because can't always be bothered to take them out when I'm just making the sample pack. So you want to make sure there's no low end, rumbly, noisy rubbish that's not part of the sound that's going to get in the way and get in the way of your bass. But yeah, that's pretty much it really for the track. In terms of the master, it was a reasonably simple master, just a touch of gentle compression, nothing too much to write home about, and it's a bit of limiting with a Ozone's really nice intelligent 3 algorithm, just so you can limit it. And didn't even go that hard with the master, just because it's at the moment I'm just looking for a label to release this track on. But yeah, this has been Firecracker. Hopefully you learned a thing or two about the mix. If not, you learned about some of the things you need to be thinking about when it comes to mixing, stuff like vocals, drum loops, just kind of the relevant details. So I'd say the overall theme is going to be just try and emphasize the things that you want to, and not really. Actually, that's not really a general theme. That's just standard mix advice. Emphasize the things you want and clear away stuff you don't want. Put stuff in you do want. That's really not much of a useful tip, that is it? I should finish with some sort of really useful tip. I'll remind you. I'd say refer back to the vocal processing. Probably the most important tips were in the vocal processing and in the percussion loop processing as well. Although there wasn't much processing in the percussion loop, it's mostly in the vocal loop. There's some really cool tips in there about keeping stuff, kind of adding edge and character to your vocal, and kind of lifting it up with a good use of reverb, stuff like that. And yeah, that's it. Boom, magic. This was how I made Firecracker. This was a long video, but you know what? It took more than 37 minutes to make. So yeah, have some of that. Boom, I've been Multiplier.